When Hollywood legend Morgan Freeman steps onto a live talk show, he expects a respectful and thoughtful discussion. But the host? She has something else in mind, firing off intrusive and inappropriate questions. Rather than losing his composure, Freeman responds in a way that leaves the entire audience in awe. His calm, yet commanding words completely shift the atmosphere, leaving everyone speechless. This unforgettable moment is yet another reason why Morgan Freeman remains one of Hollywood's most revered figures. The air in the studio was thick with anticipation. Every seat was filled, and millions of viewers tuned in from their homes, eager to hear the wisdom of Morgan Freeman, the man whose voice had narrated the essence of life itself. At 86, he was as sharp, poised, and respected as ever. As he walked onto the stage, his deep, familiar voice greeted the audience. The crowd erupted in applause, some even wiping away tears. But as he settled into his chair, something felt off. The host, Vanessa Clark, was known for her bold, sometimes ruthless, approach. Morgan had done countless interviews before, but tonight? Tonight would be different. She leaned forward, a smirk playing on her lips. "So, Morgan," she began, her voice smooth yet cutting. "At your age, do you ever wake up wondering if today might be your last?" The room fell into silence. Smiles faded. Morgan didn't flinch. He simply folded his hands in his lap and met her gaze, steady, unshaken. A storm was brewing, and Vanessa had no idea what she had just set in motion. A murmur rippled through the audience. Some exchanged uneasy glances. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Vanessa let out a chuckle, as if her words were harmless. But Morgan Freeman remained still. His deep, wise eyes rested on her, calm, knowing. But Vanessa wasn't done. "You've played God," she pressed, tilting her head. "But let's be real. You're just a man. A very old man. What's it like knowing your time is almost up?" Gasps echoed through the studio. An elderly woman in the front row clutched her chest. Morgan exhaled quietly, shaking his head. He had spent decades in Hollywood. He had seen arrogance, cruelty, and blatant disrespect. But this was something else. Vanessa was reveling in it. The camera zoomed in on Morgan's face, his expression unreadable. But inside, he was thinking, remembering. This moment wasn't just about him. It was about every elderly person watching. Every individual who had been overlooked, dismissed, or made to feel like they no longer mattered. And so, when he finally spoke, the world listened. Morgan leaned in, his hands clasped together. "Miss Clark," he said, his voice calm but piercing, "have you ever sat beside someone as they took their final breath?" A chill swept through the room. Vanessa blinked. She hadn't seen that coming. "Well, she faltered. But Morgan didn't let her finish. "I have," he said quietly. "Many times." The room grew heavy with silence. His voice carried the weight of countless memories. "I have held the hands of dear friends as they spoke their last words," he continued. "I have watched remarkable men and women take their final breaths. And do you know what they regret the most?" Vanessa swallowed hard. "They never wish for more money," Morgan said. "Or more fame. They wish they had loved more, forgiven more, cherished life more." The camera panned across the audience. Some had tears in their eyes. Morgan met Vanessa's gaze, looking deep into her soul. "You ask me what it feels like to be old," he said. "It feels like a privilege denied to many." The audience erupted. Some stood, clapping through their tears. But Morgan wasn't finished. And for the first time in her career, Vanessa Clark was speechless. She sat frozen, gripping her cue cards as if they were the only thing anchoring her. The studio was silent. The audience barely breathed. Morgan Freeman's words lingered in the air, undeniable, unforgettable. Amid the crowd, a woman quietly wiped away her tears. Nearby, an elderly man clenched his fists, lost in a memory of someone he once loved. Vanessa let out a nervous laugh, but it trembled as it left her lips. "Well, Morgan," she said, forcing a smirk, "you sure know how to spin a tale. But let's be honest." She hesitated, then pressed on. People your age. Hollywood tends to forget about them, doesn't it? A collective gasp spread through the audience. Morgan exhaled slowly and leaned back in his chair. He rubbed his fingers together, a familiar gesture when he was deep in thought. His gaze settled on Vanessa. Not with anger, not with offense, but with something softer, pity. Then he spoke. "My dear," he said, "let me tell you a story." The audience leaned forward. Morgan Freeman was about to speak. And when Morgan Freeman speaks, you listen.